Liberal Currents presents Half the Answer with your hosts, Caitlin M. Green and Trent R. Nelson.
Well, you know what they say, or at least Trent does. Happy days are here again. And we are here with Half the Answer. This is the podcast where knowing the question gets you almost all of the way there, maybe 50%. Experts disagree. Trent is my co-host. He is a historian, philosopher, and I am a linguist, and we are both editors at Liberal Currents, and we are so excited to welcome our guest today. Trent, who'd you bring me?
Well, I brought you somebody really, really special. Her name is Madiba Dennie, and, well, she does a whole bunch of stuff. She'll get into it further. She's a deputy editor and senior contributor at Balls and Strikes, and, well, she's written a wonderful book, The Originalism Trap, which we're going to get into today because, well, apart from discussing originalism, we're talking the Civil Rights Act. And, well, so many folks have benefited. Our society has benefited from a better, more equal society, to be sure, civilization. And yet some people, they don't agree, and it pains us here on Half the Answer. So we figured we had to bring somebody who knows better to give us some of the tea. Good day, Madiba.
Okay.
How are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you. Excited to be here with you all.
Yeah, hopefully you can tell us exactly how frustrated to be. Just like, on a scale. Where should we be at?
Pretty frustrated, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Okay, good.
Actually,
okay.
I have my special mug today. It says my spleen is positively tingling with frustration. So I'm already there.
Oh, man. All in your internal organs.
Yes,
Every single one.
absolutely. Well, not only the cup, we got Frogs Together Strong.
I do love
yeah.
that, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I go out as a person riding a unicorn when I go out. So I very much enjoy it. I live in Portland, so we kind of like,
Okay.
this is the epicenter of the inflatable costumes, and I couldn't not join in.
Fantastic. Well, Madiba, before we get started, can you do better on my woeful biography? Tell us a bit about yourself. Give us some of your background and how you got into focusing on what you're focusing on so much, and then we'll get into it all.
Sure. Well, I'm an attorney by training, so already had some sort of, I guess, predisposition to be interested in the use and abuse of the law, specifically how it's being used to like harm communities of color, like women, just like marginalized people of all stripes, and sort of destabilizing democracy, rolling back any gains that we had made over the past however many decades. And I think one of the there are a few advantages to legal training, but I think one of the advantages was being able to clock when other people are full of it. And I think I was seeing that a lot in a lot of the Supreme Court's decisions. Something that sort of like pushed me over the edge, I think, to sit down and write the book, The Originalism Trap, was when the draft of the Dobbs opinion leaked, and seeing how that the Supreme Court was, just going to go for it, fully embrace this originalist idea of, well, I don't think that women had rights then, so they don't have any now. And just thinking like, wow, that is just so intellectually and morally bankrupt. This is ridiculous, and we do not have to live like this. And so I just like really wanted to make that clear to people. I was like, I feel like some people, less now with like the more nonsense the court does, but I think at that time, it was more common for people to be like, this seems bad, but like, what do I know? I'm just a regular person. These are, hand-picked Yale legal scholars. They're there for a reason. They know this stuff, and that's how they say what the law means. And I guess that makes some amount of sense, that the law means what the people thought it meant then. So I guess this is just how things are. And so it just seemed that much more important for me to be like, no, that is not how things are. These people are lying to you. You do not have to accept their nonsense as the word of came down from on high. This is what it is. You have to accept it. Saying, no, you have a role to play here. You can change things. This is not how things have to be.
Nice.
Well, thank
Yeah,
you for doing that.
I recall a lot of reactions to that Dobbs decision leak, including my own. I think I wrote something for Liberal Currents about it that was just about like, you cannot be serious, honestly. So as not a legal scholar, mine was more just like human incredulity.
Yeah. And I think it seemed extra ridiculous, if you can imagine, when you juxtaposed it with the decision that remained on consecutive days, the gun rights decision when it actually came down, because that too used this sort of originalist idea of their understanding, sort of like amateur history of what things were like then. But in the guns case, the court said, well, if we don't see a gun regulation like in that era, like if you have some sort of like new type of gun law, there was a reason why legislators didn't do it. It was because they knew they couldn't. It was because they knew it was unconstitutional. That's why that law didn't exist. But on the consecutive days in the abortion decision, we see the court go, well, just because abortion wasn't banned at the states, it doesn't mean it's because they thought they didn't have the power to do it. And it's like, okay, so you are using the absence of legislation to make directly conflicting inferences based off of what outcome you want to find in order to further the goals of the conservative legal movement. So it's just like, this is all BS. This is intellectually inconsistent. You are just doing whatever so you can, deliver Republican wins. And so I just really wanted to drive that home.
Right. Yeah. All the justification is absolutely post hoc. It's just, here's what I can say that might make it feel like I'm doing a robust legal explanation of why this decision happened. No, you just did the thing you wanted, and then you tried to come up with reasons after.
Precisely.
So Madiba, let's start right there. Originalism. What is it, and how can it exist in a country where the legal system has been constantly evolving over the course of its lifetime? It seems contradictory at the very base level when we look at, John Marshall and Roger Taney and all of these decisions that were literally happening with no thought on the original. There was no original to think of.
Right. That's an excellent question. I think so. Originalism is basically the idea that the meaning of the Constitution is fixed in time. Originalists would tell you that it is frozen at the moment of enactment. Whatever the public thought when the Constitution's provisions were ratified, that's what we should still think now. Like, we have to be governed by that same understanding.
So like law begins at conception is what you're saying.
More or less. Yeah, there are a couple like tweaks on the idea. Like, there's different different flavors of originalists, but that's the sort of dominant cuisine type. Even if there are little like flavor changes from originalist A to originalist B, and I think you make a really good point, Trent, about how this is just demonstrably false. Like, I think, like, as an empirical matter, we see that the meaning of laws have changed. They change all the time. So that's not a accurate description of how law does work. And I think it would also be a bad prescription for how law should work. Because, like, originalists might say, well, okay, yeah, that's not how law has worked, and that's the problem. Like, we should be getting back to this. And I'll say, no. Getting back to that, to the extent that back there is like a real place, would be a problem. Because we are, a lot of our understandings of law, not all of them, sure, but like many of them have changed for the better in like really important and good ways to like evolve to meet our present circumstances, evolving because we recognize that some people are in fact people and should be treated accordingly. And so if we unwind all of that, it's chaining basically it's shackling our constitutional interpretation to a time when people were literally in shackles, and saying that like we have to judge everything now by a time when almost everyone was worse off. And originalists claim that this is objective because we're not using any subjective individual judges' opinions. We're using history as our marker instead. But by picking and choosing your favorite points of history, you're just building in a different bias. You were, trying to make the Constitution great again, one might say.
Cool. That sounds really attractive as a proposition.
Right. So this isn't an incredibly old proposition, however. Relatively new in the history of our sort of jurisprudence, is it not, Madiba?
Yeah, I think it would be fair to say that history has long been a factor in thinking about how we understand what the law should mean, but it is a much more recent idea to say it should be the only factor. That's like the sort of chief innovation of originalism, I think, saying that this is like the sole legitimate way to analyze the Constitution is based off of this imagined original public meaning. And I'm saying imagined because just as we debate what laws mean and should mean today, people did that in the 1800s as well. Like I think it's kind of a farce to say there is like one true singular meaning. And like even if we are seeking out some historical sources, it's like which historical sources are you using? Like when you say the original public meaning, are women part of that public? Are Black people part of that public? Are Native American people part of that public? And the answer is often no. I'll say like not exclusively, like there are occasionally idiosyncrasies. Like the one thing Neil Gorsuch is good at is tribal law by and large, because he actually does take like a original tribal commitment seriously. But we should not have to, rely on Neil Gorsuch having a good history day to see like whether or not people have rights. So,
Yeah. Hope he remembers the things he learned today. That would be really useful. Yeah. I mean, like, going back to this idea that there's like one original conception of how the law should work, like all you have to do is walk into any like national archives and just look at the piles and piles of letters between people who were in charge of framing our original system of government, just like yelling at each other about how wrong each other is. Like
right.
it's all right there.
That's why how I mentioned there are some variations on originalism. So one of the originalists, an earlier version was more connected to the intent of the framers, and eventually some folks were like, oh, you know what, actually, like I guess there kind of are as many different intents as there are legislators. Like a lot of this stuff was a product of compromise, or people had different hopes for what they thought the laws might do. So maybe we need to think about this a little bit differently. So that's how they then shifted to the allegedly more objective original public meaning, saying, okay, we're not trying to get in these individual people's heads. We're trying to think about how like an objective, like a member of the public would have understood it at this time. So instead of thinking about a real person, we're going to make up a person and and say what we think they would have thought based off of maybe contemporary dictionaries or some newspapers from around that time, and just trying to deduce it that way.
They're not sending their best private.
Yeah, this is starting to sound like a precursor to like the Baileys, right? Like Chuck Schumer's family that he made up in his brain, that he's like,
Yeah.
everything I do to make the Baileys happy. And it's like, first of all, they don't exist. And then like John Oliver made the point that secondly, they are Republicans, those people that you were trying to make happy.
Honestly, yeah. So instead of the Baileys on Long Island, it's like Johnny Slaveholder, and
Right.
saying
Yeah.
like, what would he have thought? This are like, yeah, plain voting guy.
Yeah.
He'd have
I don't
been
know. I'm
pissed.
not
Yeah.
particularly interested in what Johnny Slaveholder thought
Right.
America should be like in 2025. Maybe that's weird of me.
Chuck Schumer didn't even have to create the Baileys. He comes to all the high schools. He's been doing it for decades. He came to mine for my graduation. And he does this whole speech that you can go on YouTube and see. He's done it at like all of them for a really long time. It's fantastic. Well, Madiba, thank you for that breakdown. I have a question though. Can you explain to us the differences between the originalist school of thought and I guess what this layperson would call the living constitution theory
Yeah.
of things?
Right. So I guess if you think of originalism as saying the Constitution is dead, like there are no changes to it, like it's just that is what it is, then the sort of counter to that is this idea of a living Constitution, saying that the meaning of the document does change, it does evolve. Like Thurgood Marshall gave this like speech once where he was pretty explicitly like rejecting originalism on like the anniversary of the Constitution one year, and he was like, to be clear, I am celebrating the life of the document, not its birth. Because he was like, yeah, the birth like less than ideal, but what people have done with the Constitution over time, how they have changed it, how they've made it like more inclusive, that's great, love to see it, more of that please. And so that's like the sort of alternative version that's been understood for some decades now. And I think the sort of like shortcoming of the living constitution idea, like what has made it vulnerable to attack by originalists, is because originalists say, well, we have, a set meaning. You're saying that the Constitution can mean any old thing. Like if it's saying that, it could just change, and change to what? I don't know. So this is where I try to make an intervention by saying that it's not enough to say that the Constitution does change. We need to talk about how it should change, like in what direction it should change. And so I would argue that it should change in furtherance of the principles of the Reconstruction, saying that the Constitution was transformed by the amendments in the wake of the Civil War to actually make a real functioning multiracial democracy. We infuse these egalitarian principles into the Constitution for real this time, like for the first time. And so when we're interpreting any part of the document, we should be doing so like with those goals in mind, like thinking about, how do I build an inclusive democracy? Like how do I fulfill these till now, unfulfilled promise? Like I think that, the originalist idea that the meaning of the Constitution is fixed in time and that things have to stay as they are is directly in conflict with the sort of mission that the Reconstruction Amendments give to the country. The Reconstruction Amendments tell us that we should be changing things, that we should be building something better. So it's like very anti-constitutional to say that actually things have to be precisely as they were.
Yeah. Now, I'm just a small town linguist. I don't know so much about these big city laws, but it does seem to me that if you have a constitution that already contains the possibility for amendments, like change is sort of built into the DNA of it. I don't know. That's just how it feels to me.
No, I hear that a lot from non-lawyers. They're just like, but I mean, there's like
But
there's a way, yeah,
can
like
add
you
things.
can change it, yeah, like you can add things, like there's a way to change it. And so what originalists would tell you is that that proves their point, actually, and that they're like, if you want to change the Constitution, there is a way to do so, the formal amendment process. You can't just go updating your interpretation. So they would say you have to rely on the amendment process instead. My sort of counter to that would be, well, we've done that.
Yeah.
And we've still seen how originalists can, like reverse all sorts of gains under the Constitution anyway. Like it doesn't make sense to say like, well, you can pass a new amendment or whatever when like we have the 15th Amendment, for example, which says that the right to vote free from racial discrimination shall be like guaranteed to everyone, and Congress has the power to enforce that guarantee by legislation. We can't reconcile that just like very plain language with the court saying that the Voting Rights Act is unconstitutional. It just doesn't make sense. And so I don't really buy the originalist idea of, well, just pass an amendment, when I'm like, we have some what should be pretty good ones, but we've seen you disempower them anyways. So I think that it's insufficient to just sort of rely on the idea of formal amendment alone. Like we need to think about how people read that text and what they do with it.
Yeah. Well, and that's like part of why we even have the Supreme Court to do that, right? Is we bring cases to them and we say, please interpret these.
Yeah.
Like that's their job.
One would think. Like more recently, it seems like their job is just telling Trump, okay. So.
Yeah. No, honestly, it does feel a bit that way, does it not?
And let's get into that. Why, Madiba? Why are they doing that? Is it because they feel a certain safety in the current environment to do it? Is it because
or that they feel afraid not to do it?
Yeah, I mean, which one of our answers is it? Perhaps is it even a third one that we didn't mention?
That secret third thing.
Yeah, I mean, I am in general inclined to think that they are doing these things because they agree with them. They are doing them because they want the same results, and so like their vision of like what the government should be is one where a Republican president can do anything he wants. So they are inclined to let Trump do anything he wants. There are a handful of exceptions to this. Like Steve Vladeck actually just posted a draft of a law review article he's working on, which is making the argument that the only time the Supreme Court does pump the brakes is when something Trump does threatens their power, and then they're like, "Oh, hang on a second, like
the power of Congress, fine, but us, hang on a minute."
Yeah, they're like, Congress doesn't matter at all, but like our authority, you should watch out a little bit.
Have you seen our robes? Like we're very important.
Yeah, it's like look at these fancy pajamas.
They could be fancier. I still think that we should bring wigs back. I think that like we should be wearing the wigs.
I think it's Canada's court.
Canada,
also has those really fun like red like Santa robes.
Right.
Yeah,
they do, and they even call them Santa robes, like among themselves, like they refer.
Let's
to
be whimsical. Yeah. Right. Let's bring whimsicality.
We could be doing a lot better.
Yeah.
Why not inflatables? Have a unicorn and a frog in it. Yeah.
We basically have a unicorn and a frog already on there, so I mean.
Yeah, it's easy.
No, simple. So, well, we mentioned the Voting Rights Act. SCOTUS is interested in the Civil Rights Act, one of Johnson's crown jewels. Madiba, why do they think that piece of innovation perhaps is not good?
Well,
answer that for us.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the civil rights era, we got a lot of like expansive legislation that reshaped the political community. That in turn reshaped, people's like social standing, economic stability, just like ability to like live their lives freely and comfortably. And people, like a lot of, conservative legal movement people who had a tighter grip on power didn't care for that. They did not want to share that power. They did not like the idea of having a multiracial democracy. And so they have been, trying to seek legal ways to claw those gains back. So I think that the attacks on, on the Voting Rights Act, the attacks on like the Civil Rights Act, like we're seeing just like basically trying to undo the Civil Rights Revolution because they didn't like it. They are just opposed to the idea of this kind of the idea that the federal government has a role to play in making a just society is just like anathema to them. Like I think we see that in lots of the court's decisions recently. Like the Voting Rights Act is like a major example, but it can even like bring it back to Dobbs as well. Like when we see a legal like, oh, we're going to give this back to the states. Like women are not without political power, so like if they want abortion rights they can vote on them in their own states. And same with like with the Voting Rights Act saying like, oh, it's the federal government should not be getting all up in states' business like that. Like they should let states pass their own voting laws. And it's like, actually, the federal government should be guaranteeing like a baseline of rights across the country. Probably
like when there's something that every American should be entitled to, that really sounds like the type of thing a federal government could take care of.
Yeah. I think the birthright citizenship case, Trump v. Casa, was like really outrageous in that regard, because I was like, this is really bringing us back to like an antebellum type of constitutionalism where your citizenship could depend on what state you're in, because of how the court was, saying, well, like maybe like this injunction is too broad, like you can't have a nationwide injunction. So like, okay, so like each individual baby has to file a lawsuit, or like maybe
the question of whether you're a citizen of the country is the business of the country. Like that doesn't seem that hard to figure out.
Yeah, and the only way you can like make it sort of make sense is if you think it's just not the federal government's responsibility to protect the rights of the people in the country. And so we are seeing the like the reactionary right try like have to sort of like full scale withdraw from any sort of like rights enforcement, because they're just sort of like not the government's business. People who already have power, like corporations with power, should be able to do with that power whatever they want, and the government should stay out of it. Like that is their idea of sort of like a natural baseline. And federal involvement is like improperly disrupting that. Whereas the imbalances that exist without the federal government trying to do any sort of repair work, that's just the way things are and the way things should be. That's the natural state. So I think that we're seeing that across the board, basically, between the court pulling back from rights enforcement, and like with the Trump administration also like really pulling back from any sort of like rights enforcement as well. Just like the Department of Justice's like civil rights division is like not much of a thing anymore. So we're just seeing this idea across a lot of the powers that be, that they should not be using that power to help people, to make sure there's a sort of baseline national standard of like what being an American entitles you to.
Right. Well, yeah, I'll add to that, right? Health and Human Services, right? Our ability to get things like vaccines, our ability to report and track illnesses, the FDA protecting us from like foodborne illness. I knew we were kind of in a bad place when my mom was like, did you know there's a soap you can get for your vegetables because in case they have like E. coli on them? And I was like, they shouldn't have E. coli on them. I do think that is something that I should be able to count on.
Right. Yeah, that's something that has crossed my mind a bit, just like wondering about to what extent people remember. I mean, I say this like I was alive for it. I'm not. So I'm like, to the extent I say remember, I mean like but I'm just like thinking about the sort of pre-administrative agencies type world, like without like an environmental protection agency to like promulgate and enforce regulation, like rivers were on fire.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
is like
That's right.
mind-boggling to
Water
me.
was the wrong color. Rivers were
Yeah.
on fire. Your vegetables were making you poop forever. Like this was
Yeah.
not a place
Yes.
we want to go back to.
They used to
Right.
grow smallpox vaccines on meat and dairy cows. I mean, we had it was real bad, and I think, Madiba, that sort of is part of the problem, is that
Right. It's not in our
we
memory.
we don't remember it. We're
Mhm.
running out of people who remember getting smallpox vaccines, and we're running out of people who remember all of these terrible things, and there are real consequences to that.
I'm just thinking like we're running out of people who remember smallpox vaccines, and we're about to gain people who remember smallpox.
Exactly.
Right.
No, yeah, 100%. And like this does feel like kind of a historical pattern, right? Where like the bad thing comes back once people who remember the bad thing are gone.
Oh my
Like
god!
fascism
I'm like,
and also like widespread illness and also like yeah.
fascism is the sensible thing to think. Like my head went to like the intro of Lord of the Rings when it's like things that have been lost that should not have been forgotten, and I'm like,
Oh, wow, you are
We
I'm a
love it.
nerd alert. No,
We love
none
it.
of us in here can talk about, oh, you're such a nerd. Like that's not it's a safe space here for
This-
nerds.
Absolutely. No, I mean, I quote Lord of the Rings constantly. Um,
Well, we
no,
have to because we've got Peter Thiel out here pretending he knows what it's about when he doesn't. So
he does not. He does not. We are saving and protecting
yeah.
yeah.
the Tolkien
All these like
legacy.
tech people taking the wrong lessons from from all of the like great pieces
Oh
of
yeah.
literature.
Oh yeah. So like I was living in Silicon Valley when my roommate at the time got a job at Palantir and I was like, "Girl, why is it called that? Like please explain why it's called Palantir." And I was like, "Why would you ever in your life want to have a company or work for a company that's named after like this horrible device, right? Like that's like everybody in the whole book knows to be afraid of except for the one dumb hobbit who touches it and then is immediately shown why he should be afraid of it. Like why would you ever the thing that lies to you, right? It like shows you things to
Right.
manipulate you, like what, and then spies on you. Like why would you want this? And so like I just had to sit with that feeling for a long time because I was focused on other things. I was trying to get into grad school, like I couldn't deal with like why my roommate was working for a company that was called that. And then eventually like I just had to be like, no, it's because it's evil, isn't it?
It's bad. It's bad. Why did you name the defense company Smaug Incorporated? Right? It's the same idea. It's a bad
This is
dragon.
the torment nexus, right? This is like finally we have
Yeah.
created the device, the torment nexus from the popular science fiction novel. Please, for the love of God, never invent the torment nexus.
Oh man. Okay. So, originalism bad.
Mhm.
Peter Thiel
I think we've
bad.
covered that.
Lord of
People
the
bad.
Rings good.
Yeah.
Frogs
Palantir.
together strong.
Frogs
Let's move
together
on.
That's right.
strong. So Madiba, what is, as we've really spoken about all of this Civil Rights Act, why conservatives don't like it, how it, well, this sort of refrain on the conservative movement trying to make this country a white nation, a white supremacist nation. I mean, even some of our Reconstruction presidents, although many of them were shit, said, this is not a white man's country. This is an American country.
If JD Vance hears this, he's gonna have a heart attack. Like
He'll
the phrase "this is not a white man's country" could sustain an apocalyptic level fit for JD Vance for like 2 months.
No, it's true. It's true. And they hate when white people say it too, because
Yeah,
they
that's right,
really
'cause
want
we're
white
race
people to
traitors.
say it. Right,
It's
exactly.
like traitor.
Yeah, exactly.
Proud race traders over here. This is the podcast for that.
Yes, exactly. Proud of it. But we it frustrates me, to be sure, that we continue to sort of fall into this, as you noted earlier, Madiba, this sort of, I don't understand it enough, and so I'll just go ahead and like assume that like the Yale trained lawyers are going to get this one right, you know. But as you noted, we can't, which I think brings us to.
In fact, they're being Yale trained is maybe like
That's a strike.
an
Yeah.
indication ahead of time that they're not going to get it right.
Right. That's a strike. We're talking to balls and strikes, people. That's a strike, to be sure. Can we talk about your book a little bit? What is the originalism trap? Now that
why
we've
is it a
spoken
trap?
about everything else, tell us what the ruse is.
Well, I think the sort of titular trap is this idea of objectivity, and that it is serving a purpose other than the goals of the conservative legal movement. That there is like some sort of legitimacy to this, and that like we should be engaging on those terms, because a lot of the sort of like liberal legal world has been or like trying to thinking like, well, these are the rules of the game, and we should, if they're going to rely on this part of history, like then we should just get our own historians and show them like, here, like actually your understanding was incorrect. If you look at this archive, you would understand that this is the better way of interpreting the law.
Yeah.
And I'm like, they do not care. I
We
am
love
so
doing
done.
that.
Yeah.
We
We're
love
not
doing
going to beat
that.
them at originalism.
Yeah.
No, that's right. This kind of
Yeah,
like
I'm
trap
like,
language helps explain that pattern, right?
Yeah.
Of like,
Yeah.
oh, they
I'm
got
like,
you arguing about the wrong thing again.
yes, yeah, you're arguing on the wrong thing. I'm like, I understand the impulse to tell people why and how they are wrong. I also am pedantic. So I'm like, I
Right.
get it.
That's why you went to law school, right?
Yeah. However, I'm like, it is not worth our time. And doing so is also conceding the premise that we should be interpreting our laws based off of a single point in time, instead of based off of the principles that we're supposed to be, embodying, that we're supposed to be fulfilling. So I think it's really getting us to look in the wrong place and not think about like, how should we actually be serving people, and like what legal analysis is necessary to do that.
Yeah. As a teacher in the classroom, I like to have a like poster in the classroom. I think a lot of teachers do this. We're taught to do it. That's like a reminder of what our goals are in the class, right? So like, we're trying to facilitate healthy discussion. We're trying to make sure we respect everybody in our classroom. We're trying to make sure that we're not doing disruptions that take us off of the goals of our lesson plan for the day. And like maybe the Supreme Court needs that. Like they need a poster that like they can look at that reminds them like, we're trying to make sure that we ensure freedom for all Americans. We're trying to protect them from undue burdens, like things that threaten their health and their safety. Like maybe if they have that there, they'll remember that like,
There was like
that's
a
the
constitution of some kind that they could consult.
It's a little too many words. Okay, these Yale educated
You're right. Yeah.
Supreme Court justices are not
You gotta
prepared
boil
to
it
read
down.
that many words. Yeah. We need some happy bullet points that are done with like magic marker in a couple colors, some underlines, some stars. It'll help.
Yeah, having done this podcast, we always we tend to sort of notice these recurring themes or traits in some of our discussions, and your originalism trap, it reminds me that we are very often ceding the ground to the opposition.
Mm-hmm.
We are very often playing on their terms, whether it is dealing with originalism, whether it's dealing with the language that we allegedly use, whether it's dealing with the immigration, the state of immigration or the state of crime. We're always sort of clamoring to be like, no, you're right, but just a little wrong about this. Like we can fix it if we just maybe explain it better to you. Right.
Right. Yeah. The immigration thing is perfect, right? Because when the right says we have a crisis of immigration, meaning that like too many people are being allowed in, and they're being allowed to like exist without being criminalized, then some people take, like, the liberal kind of side takes that and goes, okay, a crisis of immigration, too many immigrants, got it. Okay, but they're dealing with it wrong, right?
Right.
They're being too harsh. What we're going to do is solve the immigration crisis that we somehow just accepted exists,
Right.
right? By criminalizing it, but it differently, with like more citations and paperwork as
Friendlier
opposed to like
criminalizing.
pages. Yeah.
Yeah.
With emojis. Yeah.
Yeah. Softer handcuffs. So.
Yeah. Oh no, the fuzzy kind? Like, that's not good. We can't be doing that.
But it's really frustrating, Madiba. Now, how do, in this particular instance, in the judicial discussion, how do we go about that? Perhaps if we know how we can fight that, I know we're still going to buy the book, don't worry. But but maybe if we understand how to avoid this trap, we can close our eyes and say, maybe if we could make a facsimile of the strategy and apply it to other circumstances, we could be free of other traps as well.
Yeah. Like, think bigger. Like, do not need to be constrained by the conservative vision. We can and should be thinking about, like, how we imagine the law should be working and can serve people. And I think that's even something we can and should be doing right now, for a couple of reasons. One is that I think it's useful as, like a guidepost, so we don't lose sight of like what we should be focusing on. Two is I think it is useful for motivating people, like giving people something to fight for instead of just like something to try like fight against or like protect yourself from. And the third is that we just need to, we can't just be wasting time. We need to use the time we have. And that's something you can even do like while you are, while you lack the sort of majority power. Like, I think about how Clarence Thomas was writing one-man dissents for years that are now just lifted and adopted by the majority as just like what law is. So I'm like, we don't need to just be saying, oh, they like misapplied this originalist analysis. We can be charting out a whole different type of analysis, saying like, this is what the law should mean. This is how we should be applying things, so that lower court judges can use it to try sort of like, narrow from below like what the Supreme Court is doing. State court judges could find it useful. And when we do take back power on the Supreme Court as well, you already have the sort of like doctrinal body laid out for you to work from. You're not just now I'm here and now I have to start and try craft something in you. Like, we can be building this all along.
Yeah, the best time to start was yesterday. The second best
Precisely.
time to start is
today. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, for our listeners and our viewers, when you go and you buy the Originalism Trap, go read some history. Go understand what the past was actually saying and actually thinking. Because I mean, Abraham Lincoln used to conceive of the Constitution as sort of a inadequate compromise that was enacted to create this nation, but he praised the Declaration as more the ideal, more of what we're shooting for. And so even in that mindset, you can see this sort of vision of a document that can change, that changes, that develops, that should be developing as we become more civilized in how we behave and how we perceive things.
And I like that you point out Lincoln's understanding of the Constitution as well, since he also was not super big into judicial supremacy. Like, when the Supreme Court handed down Dred Scott, Lincoln was like, I don't know. He's like, I don't necessarily
be in charge of that.
yeah. He's like, I don't know if that's even your call to make. And so, like, I think there is this a further value, I guess, of taking back the Constitution from just, this tiny handful of like conservative guys, usually guys who like went to Yale Law, to think like everyone else can be like, I think this means something else. I think it should mean something else, and like you don't get to decide that for everyone.
Yeah, I think I'm really obsessed with this idea that like we keep skipping over the idea of current research, like using facts that are true right now to decide how things should be. And I think that plays in uh, at least in one place in this question of like undue burden. I keep seeing this kind of idea of undue burden coming back. It came in Dobbs, right? Amy Coney Barrett was like, actually being pregnant and bringing a baby to term is not actually that big of a deal. Like people should just do it. If they get pregnant, they should
Yeah,
just like
she's
just
like,
see it
it's
through
fine.
and then take care of things after that. Right. And
She's like,
then,
look at me, I have
right.
like 70. Like you're fine.
First of all, yeah. And like secondly, like I've had two kids. If I hadn't wanted them, like that would absolutely have been an undue burden for me. Like that
Yeah.
was like, my like your body changes, you experience all these new medical risks, like obviously, and people treat you differently. Like it's all a whole thing. Anyway, like that one, and then also the immigration stops, right? Where JD, or I forget who it was who
That
said
was
this thing about
Kavanaugh.
Kavanaugh, who was like, oh yeah, it's not really an undue burden to like get stopped. And it's like immediately, like the next day, a guy was held for like 12 hours who was like who had his documents. And it's like, okay, so like being locked in a room for 12 hours is an undue burden, I do think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Being able to be like kidnapped by the state is absolutely an undue burden. Like this, I can't believe that I have to say this in 2025.
Even just like
that,
being pinned to the sidewalk for 30 minutes, like that's an undue burden.
Yeah.
I do not think that
yes.
that's something that we should have to accept.
And it really is like ridiculous. Like you point out correctly, Caitlin, that like this like the next day we see like just like horrendous examples. But there also, would have been examples if he cared to read them in like the lower
Right.
court's
In
opinions.
previous days.
Yeah. In previous days, like I think we've been seeing a lot of the lower courts rule against the Trump administration. The Trump administration files an emergency petition to the Supreme Court saying it's desperately important that you lift this order right now, at least while the case is pending, to let me go ahead and start doing whatever terrible thing I'm trying to do. And then the Supreme Court does, often without a word, like without any sort of like analysis or explanation. And doing so is just casting aside all of the work and fact finding that the lower courts did. Like I'm with the Kavanaugh stops case, the lower court held multiple hearings and had like a 70-page opinion. And in the opinion was like, there is a mountain of evidence that like plaintiffs have shown me, like proving that like there is this like genuine risk, and that these are like roving bands of federal agents are going around just like abusing people because they like speak English with an accent, or because they like heard them speaking Spanish, or like they assume they're undocumented just because they're a Latino construction worker. And Kavanaugh just batted all of that aside, like without any real consideration. So yeah, just seeing this disregard for the facts, this disregard for law, disregard for even like their colleagues in the judiciary, and certainly disregard for the public at large.
Yeah, there's no reason why anybody should be breaking a car window on top of a baby. That is not okay, and we should be able to say so.
Yeah.
Yeah, fairly safely. Absolutely. Well, Madiba, this has been such a marvelous chat so far, but I have more questions. I'm hoping that you might be able to answer them. Surely, in the first 9 months of the Trump administration, many people have been affected and hurt, across all walks of American life, across walks of international life, as I think we've seen in the Atlantic and the Pacific.
Mm-hmm.
Well, why, Madiba, is the government picking on people such as Kilmar Abrego Garcia? Why are they making individuals, why are they trying so hard to remove singular individuals who don't seem to have done really much wrong,
Yeah.
trying to
I mean,
get
that guy
them.
became a symbol, right? And so now they
Yeah.
cannot let it go.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think that's definitely a part of it. It's like, first of all, they're horribly racist. They're white supremacists trying to make this non-existent white country a reality. And so they're trying to like purge like people of color out of the country, summarily removing them. And then in the case of, Kilmar Brigo Garcia, we have someone who, yeah, has become a symbol of the injustice and also the incompetence of the administration. Just like, wow, they either like didn't know or didn't care that they were removing someone who had like every right to be here, and they sent him off to be like literally tortured, and like this is horrendous. And so the administration thinks, well, that looks bad. Time to smear this guy. Time
Right.
to double and triple down, and try like really make sure we get him out now. So I think it's like multiple things going on there, like the initial sort of like disgusting policies, and then this sort of like refusal to deviate from them, or like say they were wrong, or like admit fault or admit harm. So yeah, they're like that much more committed to getting him
Yeah.
out.
This is why I have often said in our past episodes that this case reminds me so much of the Dreyfus affair. Not because he was a military man like Dreyfus was in France, but because of that second part that you're mentioning, Madiba, right? Not the fact that the government made a mistake, but the fact that the government now, when confronted with the fact that they made a mistake, is like, actually, we must make an innocent man suffer
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
to protect us.
To
An
justify it.
innocent man must suffer so that we do not look goofy. And
Right.
that becomes the part that sends it into overdrive for me, because the government has an obligation to be the last group or institution to try to do something like that. You got to be real honest with us.
Yeah.
These are people's lives, and you're allegedly supposed to be protecting. Before the Trump administration, I guess, Madiba.
Yeah.
So I have a
it's supposed
theory
to.
too. I have a theory that like centers around discourse, because obviously that's what I study. So I'm gonna make it about my thing.
Same.
But I think part of the explanation for what's happened to Kilmar Brigo Garcia is that we know that when we want to make a point to the public, the best way to really do that is to take a specific story, take a
Mhm.
narrative, and tell the story, and to say like, get to know this guy and the things that happened to him, and then you can extrapolate that out into what you think should be happening in the country at large. And
Yeah.
knowing that that's really effective, taking somebody that became the center of one of those narratives and absolutely ruining his life and
Mhm.
dragging his name through the mud and torturing him physically and mentally, and just making it so unappealing to anybody to ever become the person that is the focus of the narrative that makes your larger point is
Yeah.
also a tactic, I think, just
Yeah.
to absolutely disincentivize one of our main tools in making
Right.
people understand the overreaches of this government and how unacceptable it is.
And it's
Absolutely.
sort of a thinking about tactics that like chips away at the idea, like if we can get people to agree that this guy shouldn't have rights, then it becomes that much easier to get buy-in for taking rights away from other people too, to sort of consolidating their power and stripping away constitutional protections for everybody else.
Right. First, they came for the guy with the marijuana leaf tattooed on his knuckle, and then like they'll just keep going.
Damn. Yeah, that's true. They did come for him. No, but that's, I think both of those points taken together do sort of paint the picture of, and so often we go back to like an authoritarian or a 20th century comparison. But I mean, inflicting public punishment on a person is like straight 17th century. you know. And that logic is not surprising that it comes up with this administration, because this is sort of the cruelty is the point administration. And if we are trying to make a point that if we can just show we're the meanest, toughest SOBs on the block, that no one will do anything that we don't want, then I guess putting somebody out there on the, you know, with their head in the thing, that's a good way to do it, huh?
Yeah, they want the population to be scared. They want people to be too demoralized or too frightened to fight back, which is why we have to. So.
Yeah, that's right. And, you know, we've made this point before, which is if they're making lists of like undesirables and people who make trouble, it's our responsibility to make that list as long as possible. Just like gum up the works and make it harder.
Yeah. You know, I think that sort of connects back to some of the ideas in the originalism trap a bit when I'm thinking about ways of reworking interpretation, or like confronting some of the harms the Supreme Court is doing. Just like seize every opportunity to make things harder. You know, to like you can gum up the works. Like we are capable of being just as creative about interpretation as the court is being. So
got to get into
and
some
just
good
as
trouble.
annoying.
Yeah.
We can be so much more annoying than we're being right now. I believe in my ability to become more annoying.
Yeah.
Oh, every day, a little bit more every day.
Yeah, you know, I've said this to some folks before. I'm like, don't underestimate the value of being annoying. Like, if you can just make it like too irritating for people to behave in the way they are, like that is a way you can shift behavior. You know, just make it like unsustainable for them to do otherwise. If they're just like, for the love of God, okay. So
just shut up. That's right. Well, we talk about like, you know, we know things are getting really good when the like Congress people start telling the newspaper, like, I'm getting so many calls, tell them to stop calling. My constituents won't stop calling me. And that's when you know, like, we're getting it done.
Remember, folks, we can be annoying for longer than they can be fascists. So,
that's good. Put that on a sign.
we'll get that on a sign to be sure. Well, Madiba, this has just been an absolutely brilliant discussion, and we appreciate so much that you found some time to have it with us. Do you have anything positive for us? I mean, much of our discussion has been positive, but Caitlin and I,
that was pretty good.
we try to end the program with some positives as best we can.
Something people can do, something people should know, just something.
Anything like that.
Well, I'm going to be a little selfish, and for things that people should know, I'm like, oh, can you get my book? Can you read the originalism trap?
In the book?
Yeah, there are things you should know in the originalism trap. I would love for you to learn them and then go out and do them. And I think something else just to know in general, I like to say this sometimes when I'm talking with folks as a reminder for all of us, since things are, you know, dark and bad, but that things have been dark and bad before, and that people still fought, and that sometimes those people won. And so we should, you know, not let the administration take that desire and like a feeling that like we can fight away from us, because we can. And I think that we can win this fight together.
Yeah, I think when things are dark and bad, that is when you can take the opportunity to do something light and good. And so, you know, like last week was really hard over in Portland. The ICE facility became the location of a lot of like really aggressive far right agitation and destruction and violence even. And so I was getting really down about that. So I put on my inflatable unicorn costume and I went out there and I brought a bag of stuffies to the people at the Portland Immigrant Rights Coalition, because they stand out there and they give them to the little kids who have an appointment that they need to go to hold on to while they're in there. Yeah. So, and yeah, I felt better. I felt better after I did that.
Doing things makes you feel better. Doing things with other people as well, just like makes you feel better. It reminds us that we are not alone in this, and that like, that we have power in our numbers to like affect positive change.
Yeah. And that's what Baldwin used to say as well, right? That's one of the benefits of reading history, is that you identify that in the past there were people that were also dealing with your struggle, that you're
Mhm.
not alone, and that you're, just continuing the climb. Yeah, as my friend and I say, you're doing your shift. You're taking your shift. You got to fill your shift for
That's
the
right.
next.
And your shift cannot be 24/7. You have to take care of yourself.
Yep.
So
That's
that's why we
real.
have the shifts, right? That's why
Yeah.
I'm at the ice facility in the mornings when not a lot of people are there, because that's my shift. I can't do it at night, but I can do it in the morning.
Absolutely. Well, Madiba, before we let you go, well, we need more self-promotion. Where can people find your wonderful book, The Originalism Trap? Where can they read your work? Where can they see the reports that you've done, the intellectual activities that you've been a part of? Give us all of the deets.
Sure. The Originalism Trap is available wherever books are sold, your local bookstore, bookshop.org, all of it. You can get it there. I write regularly articles at Balls and Strikes, your progressive legal commentary outlet. And for other reports, I worked with the New Jersey Reparations Council, so we have a report as well. And yeah, that's lots of, let's see, I'm like reports when I was at the Brennan Center. I got lots of writing, you guys. So
Yeah.
oh,
We'll
and I
link to a
post
lot of
far
that
too
stuff
much.
in the show notes.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, and I post far too much online. So if you're on Blue Sky, you can find me there more than I should be as well.
We'll link there too. It's always good to see what you're thinking in the moment when something comes out, right? That's what that's good for. Well, thank you, Madiba. This was such a great, great treat. We are so happy that we got to talk to you, and we hope you'll come back and give us your legal opinion on developments in the future.
I would love
Or
to.
we can just throw a party when we've overthrown fascism and have won. We can all
Even
come on
better.
here and
Both.
Yeah.
Well, this has been Half the Answer, where understanding a question is half the answer, a phrase that I know how to say and do correctly every time. Thank you so much. We will see you later.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Half the Answer, presented by Liberal Currents. You can find Half the Answer anywhere you get your podcasts. Liberal Currents is an entirely listener and subscriber-funded publication, which includes programs like Half the Answer and Neon Liberalism. So, if you like what you've heard and wish to contribute, you may do so at liberalcurrents.com and through Patreon. And remember, understanding a question is half the answer.